thepascal.
I am very, very honored and very excited about having this man on the show. He is the director of this new heist movie that's coming out called Red Notice, starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Gal Gadot, and the very, very funny Ryan Reynolds. Please welcome Rawson Marshall Thurber to the show. How you doing, my brother?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Anytime, man. Let me tell you something. This movie is really, really funny. A lot of action, a lot of fun. I mean, this came from your own brain. Real talk.
Real talk. Yeah, from my own brain pan. I thunk it up on my own.
Yeah, you know, it's really exciting when you got something like that, where you put something like that together. You know, you're able to expand and broaden your horizons, broaden your ideas, and just really expand a world into something much bigger. Because I mean, I understand that you also did direct We Are the Millers as well, and I know that was a little bit of a smaller film, if you will, for lack of a better term. You know, technologically speaking. Can we talk a little bit about the growth of your career? I mean, you went from that to now you're working on such bigger, more imaginative, technically heavy content now. What has been the journey been for you?
What a great question. Thank you for asking. I don't get to talk about this part of it too often. Well, I mean, it's been almost 20 years in the business. And I started, the first movie I made was Dodgeball, and this movie that's coming up this weekend, or is available right now on Netflix, is Red Notice, and there's obviously a wide gap between the two. And look, I've always loved comedy, and that's something I hope to do for the rest of my life, the rest of my career. But I really love action films. I love an old school action adventure. I love a good swashbuckler. I grew up, Raiders of the Lost Ark was one of my all-time favorite films. I know I'm not alone there. And I've always enjoyed them and always wanted to make them. And so I went from Dodgeball to We're the Millers, which had a little more action, to Central Intelligence, which was a proper action comedy. And then to Skyscraper, which is a straight action film, and then to Red Notice, which is an action adventure comedy. So I think I just sort of kept building as I went, and kept expanding and extending my knowledge base and my directorial repertoire until I got to Red Notice, which I think is the best film I've ever made, and certainly without question the most challenging film I'd ever attempted, for more than one reason.
Well, let me just say this. I'm sure a lot of people have already said this to you a million times, but congratulations on your glow up. It's been amazing.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, but I do have to ask you though, when you were writing this film, Red Notice, were you thinking of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Ryan Reynolds as these parts, or was it somebody else in mind?
No, there was never anybody else. So I was making Skyscraper. We were shooting it in Vancouver, and when I came up with the idea for Red Notice, I'm not alone in this, but oftentimes if you're working on something, you're dealing with all sorts of frustrations. If you're shooting a film, the compromises and whatnot, and you start thinking about some other movie that you'd rather be making that would have no problems, of course. And that was Red Notice. And so Dwayne and I went out to dinner, and I told him the story of Red Notice, and he said, I love it, I'm in. And I'd always wanted Gal Gadot for her role, and so I flew to London to meet with Gal and pitched her the idea. And she said, "I love it, I'm in." And then I wrote the script, and as I wrote the script, I had Ryan in my mind for it and in my ear, and I'd known him in passing for the better part of a decade. And so I wrote the role for Ryan as best I could, and I sent it to him, and he read it overnight and said yes the next day. So I got all three of my first choices for Red Notice, which also makes me the luckiest director on planet Earth.
No kidding. I mean, talk about full-on man crush going on here. I mean, if you love Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and you love Ryan Reynolds, they're back at it again in the same movie. And it doesn't hurt to have somebody as beautiful and as talented as Gal Gadot in such a movie like this, which is really, really exciting.
She's the coolest, man. I don't know if you've ever met her or talked to her, but she is absolutely the coolest.
I have not met her yet, but that is a goal. Okay,
Good.
Bucket list. Okay,
yeah, you got it.
List. So tell me, what was like the hardest part about making this particular film?
Oh, well, there's really one answer for that, and that's the global pandemic. We were about halfway through shooting the film, and everything was going, about as swimmingly as it can on something like this. And then COVID struck, and we had to shut down. And we shut down for about 6 months right in the middle of our shoot, and and had to come back and figure out not only just the logistics of making a film of this scale during a global pandemic when there was no vaccine and no protocols to shoot a film under these conditions, but also creatively. We were about a week away from traveling the globe and going to all these places, and we had to figure out how to shoot this globe-trotting heist film without ever leaving Atlanta.
Wow.
So it was without question the most challenging film of my career, and I hope I never have to face this sort of challenge again. That's for sure.
No kidding. So you're saying a lot of this was more planned out to be more practical, like you guys were going to be in these particular areas planned out, but
there was not supposed to be. Very, very few visual effects shots originally planned. Like I think there were about 400 visual effects shots in total, which for a film of this size is not a lot. We ended up with over 1,500. I think 1,600 visual effects shots. So about 4 times the amount of visual effects shots just because of COVID. It was a real challenge.
So obviously your crew, your team may have morphed over time because of this curveball that was thrown in, right?
Yeah, well, we brought in some more visual effects help, of course. But what really changed was how we went about making the film. So we came back to Atlanta after our quarantine, or after the 6-month hiatus, and we had to bubble up and BA style. So our entire crew, we rented out 2 entire hotels, and they stayed there, and they would drive from the hotel to set, and when we wrapped on the day, they would drive back to the hotel, and that was it. And so our crew, cast and crew, were away from their families for 90 days straight. It was very strict and very serious, and we didn't lose a single day of shooting to COVID, but it was an incredible sacrifice. But the thing about the crew that we had in Atlanta is, they really sort of embraced that. I don't know, that old Hollywood adage of the show must go on, and we figured it out, and we did it.
Yeah, you guys definitely killed it. It's a beautifully shot. Beautifully shot. Really, really great looking. Film.
Oh, thank you. That's a big credit to my cinematographer Marcus Forder, who's this sort of German wunderkind who is, he's incredibly talented. He's got sort of an artist's eye and a technician's mind. And when we talked about making the movie, we wanted to make sure that it had this sort of old school Hollywood glamour to it. So we ended up using these old school anamorphic lenses, these ultra panatar lenses, which are about 70 years old. And in fact, a couple of the lenses that we used on Red Notice were used to shoot Lawrence of Arabia and Ben-Hur, literally the actual glass. Wow. So we paired those old lenses with a digital camera system by Red. So we had this sort of cutting edge 8K digital technology paired with ancient classic Hollywood glass, and I think it gave us a unique look. So thanks for noticing.
That is so exciting. Wow.
Yeah.
Just to have that kind of, legendary glass in your production, it's kind of like an omen for good things.
I hope so. Yeah. We were very, very careful with those lenses when we used them. That's very careful.
Okay. So I got one last question for you. It's kind of a twofer, so just roll with me. I'm sure you've gotten this question a lot, but I'm going to ask it to you anyway. Any of your fictional characters, one of your fictional characters and one of your real life actors, who would you go on a heist with? Pick one of your characters from your scripts, and one of your actors that you've worked with 100 times.
Oh God. Okay, I would go with White Goodman from Dodgeball, just because he's definitely a schemer and a plotter and a bad dude. So if I'm up to no good, I'd pair up with him. And then in terms of an actual actor, I guess I'd pick Catherine Hahn from We're the Millers. because at least I know I would be laughing my ass off the whole way through.
It sounds awesome, man. Well, thank you so much, Rawson Marshall.
Thank you.
Red Notice is out now on Netflix. Go check it out. You'll thank me later.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pascal, you are now rocking with that dude Pascal. We be going wild.